Welcome along to the second part of the season preview of season 8 of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast. If you've missed part 1, you've heard you've missed hearing James and I discussing everything to do with the summer transfers, pre-season friendlies, and all of that. And in this part of the podcast, we will look at some of the other teams in the Championship that we will come up against this season and talk about 2 or 3 really good things that the club have done over the course of the recent weeks, with some decisions that they've made in particular.
I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got these massive souls. We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Let's talk about some of the other sides then that might be at the top of the table. Leeds are the title favourites with the bookmakers, comfortable title favourites with the bookmakers, but they've lost some big players. Somerville was the player of the season in the Championship last season. He's gone to West Ham. Archie Gray was like their James Justin, just broke through from nowhere. He's gone to Tottenham. Huge fees that they've got for both of them too. Kamara in midfield's gone as well. All sorts of talk that they're going to lose Nonto as well, the Italian fella. He's being touted about, and 1 or 2 others. They have to go up, Leeds, in the eyes of their fans. They have to go up. They're too big to be in the Premier League. They're getting to the stage where...
Too big to be in the Premier League?
Sorry, too big to be in the Championship. They're getting to the stage where also they don't go up this season. They've only got 1 season of parachute payments left, and then panic really ensues. We've seen that whilst we've been in this division with a lot of clubs. The Leeds mentality is, particularly having lost in the playoff final as well, they have to go up. Now, as we sit here right now on the 7th of August, having lost those players and yet to replace them, and I'm sure they will replace them, they've got money to burn, but that's not necessarily a good thing, as we're finding out. As of right now, they look a weaker side than they did last season, and they weren't good enough to go up last season. Now, this does look a weaker Championship, so you've got to think, if you're talking of teams in the top 4, Leeds aren't going to be out of it.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. They've got all that money to play with as well.
A manager who knows how to get out of this league as well, even though he didn't last season. He's taken Norwich out of it twice, Daniel Farker, if he stays around, which I presume he will this close to the start of the season.
Yeah, listen, Leeds are a massive club, and this is the thing about expectation. Their expectation is they should be in the Premier League. And probably for a certain vintage of a fan, they should be up there in the Champions League spots and stuff. You know, it was this century that they were. So it's amazing that the drop-off that's happened, but they will think that. I think it's quite interesting about the parachute payment situation, whereas for them, 1 season of parachute payments left would be, panic stations. And I know for Luton, people say, well, that'll be the case for Luton. You've got parachute payments, but Luton aren't operating on these parachute payments. The parachute payments for Luton are the lifeblood of the next generation of Luton, the lifeblood of Power Court. That's going to get all that built and everything. And that's why they have always been under 2020 quite prudent with the money, and that's why they're not splashing it in that sense. So the parachute payments aren't the same sort of thing for Luton. So if it didn't happen, I think they'd still be competitive, and they wouldn't have a black hole in the finances because of it. So it's a major difference. But you do wonder how much pressure that adds onto just the general feeling around a club. Of we've just mentioned that I think that there's quite a positive vibe around Luton still, and quite rightly so. But maybe not so in Leeds. Maybe it's a lot more tense, and that's going to be better for Luton than it is for Leeds in the grand scheme of the Championship season.
Yeah, absolutely. They didn't handle the pressure of going up last season, so who's to say they'll handle it this season? Albeit, I can't stress enough, this looks a much weaker Championship than it did last season. There's no Ipswich coming from League One. The 3 clubs that come up aren't Ipswich, and the 3 clubs that come down were all established Premier League clubs last season, weren't they? Leicester, who won the sodding thing 6 or 7 years prior to, Southampton, who'd been in it forever and a day, and whoever the other one was who bombed out of Leeds themselves. Sorry, yeah. So it's, this season. Let's talk about the other two teams that come down. Actually, you've got Burnley, a lot more of an unknown because Scott Parker's gone in. Vincent Kompany's obviously upgraded to Bayern Munich. I think it's fair to say he's upgraded to Bayern Munich. I don't know how he's managed to do it, but he has upgraded to Bayern Munich. Ipswich have walked off with the good goalkeeper that they've got, haven't they? And dumped off the one that they did have in exchange. So I don't know whether they go with the former Ipswich goalkeeper or whether they go with Trafford. Please go with Trafford, Scott Parker. So I don't know where they go with that. I looked at their squad earlier, or sorry, someone put a message out on social media, look at the Burnley squad. And when there's a picture and you have to actually click on it to enlarge it, you have to do that to get all of Burnley's players on a Wikipedia list. That's how many players they've got. Now, obviously some of them will go. There's a few of them that would have gone to the Euros that they probably want rid of, that they couldn't get rid of whilst they were at the Euros and things like that. But it doesn't strike me as an immediate hit the ground running, ready to do what they did 2 seasons ago sort of thing. So that would be interesting. Obviously, I'll reserve judgment until Monday night because it could come back to haunt us very, very quickly. But Scott Parker strikes me, reading between the lines of Burnley fans, as a kind of meh choice, really. I think they wanted something a little bit more positive than that. Even though he's got 2 clubs promoted from this league, they were damn good sides, weren't they? That he got promoted. That Fulham side, way too good for this league. And the Bournemouth one, well, they've done pretty well since then. How do you see Burnley? Again, I'd be surprised if they're not top 4, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're not pushing for automatic at the same time.
Yeah, no, I see them as on sort of level par with Luton, maybe a bit below, because obviously what happened in the Premier League season. So that can't be discounted.
They're going to have to change that style, though, aren't they? Scott Parker can't play that kind of football. If he could, no offence, he wouldn't have been dropping down to manage Burnley. He'd have stayed in as the Premier League manager, wouldn't he? Presumably, Premier League clubs sack him because he's not taking them to the level that they think that they can go to from a football point of view. So they can't play, for the want of a better phrase, tiki-taka football like Kompany was playing, where it was relentless possession football. They were getting 75% possession and upwards when they were in the Championship. They'll still have more of the ball, but you're probably looking 65% rather than 75%. There will be a difference, won't there? It won't be. I'm not saying they're going back to Sean Dyche Burnley, but they're not playing Vincent Kompany Burnley either, are they? Which might not be a bad thing.
Yeah, I'm thinking it kind of remains to be seen. He did have very, very good players in that Fulham side, and even in the Bournemouth side that got up. And I understand they're probably a bit underwhelmed by it. It's one of those managers that used to be players. You just sort of think, is it just sort of the reputation that gets these jobs? But he's obviously getting decent clubs, and so he's got a wonderful presentation in him. I don't know, but I think they're going to be there or thereabouts, challenging at the top, as they should be, with the players that they brought in for the Premier League that didn't work out for the Premier League. They tried to play too gung ho, but if they keep a very similar style, maybe it won't be the same, note for note, but if they play sort of that attacking style that they wanted to in the Premier League and do it in the Championship, there will be a vast number of teams that won't be able to live with it, because the top half of the Championship to the bottom half will be quite vastly different. Particularly this season, as you say, it's not going to be as strong a division. So I think they'll be up there. That's why it's one of the hardest possible starts to the season you could possibly have, even with every single defender at your disposal, and that's not the case. So it's going to be doubly difficult there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how Burnley do go. At Sheffield United, the vibes are a lot weaker with Sheffield United. Often a club that gets relegated out of the Premier League, they're immediately looked at to get promoted from the outside world, immediately looked at to get promoted straight away. I don't really get the vibes that the outside world are expecting Sheffield United to get promoted straight away. I don't know whether that's because they were so bad last season. I mean, it can't be a bad thing that McBurney's left, can it? I mean, he's your mate with his elbows. But not keeping him kind of says a story to me, really, because he's not that great. And he hasn't gone to a fantastic club in La Liga. He's gone to a side that's likely to struggle. Archer's gone back to Villa. That was a weird one.
Yeah.
Bogle's gone to Leeds, hasn't he? The right back. And one or two others are being talked. Hamer's being talked of leaving. They've signed O'Hare from Coventry. Good signing if he stays fit and things. Maybe the manager as well has got question marks, because the last time he was in this division, albeit at a basket case club, he stunk the place out. The vibes don't seem great around Sheffield United. As we sit here right now, I'd kind of be disappointed if they finish above us, unless they go on a stupid spending spree, but I don't think they've got the ammunition to do it anyway. I'd kind of be a bit disappointed if they finished above us from the vibes I'm reading.
I would be, because purely on a sort of continuation fact from last season, if we're saying that the vibes are quite positive around the Luton squad, and they are, surely they're in the absolute dustbin for Sheffield United last season. They were so abjectly terrible. Got pumped at least 5-0 at least once in most months of that season. Some absolutely disastrous results. You've got rid of the Chilean forward as well. Yeah.
Raritan Diaz. Southampton gone, I think.
He's gone as well. So
I think McAtee, the other one, 2R1, was on loan there, wasn't he? And I think he's gone back to Manchester City. I haven't heard that he's gone back to Sheffield United yet. So he's another key player who's missing. Again, of course, 3.5 weeks down the line, this could all change.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, no, I liked the look of McAtee when he played. And one of the few players I think we were able to highlight from their side that were actually useful. So yeah, I think it's a huge turnaround job to get from the place they were, knowing they were probably relegated from January, February time, realistically, just having to play out the rest of it and get pumped as much as they did, to turn that around to then foster a winning mentality. If 9-10 months down the line that happens, I'll hold my hands up, but it's very difficult to see that happening.
Yeah, I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening under this manager. The one thing I do think this season, the top 6 will be progressive football managers in the Kieran McKenna mould at Ipswich. Luckily enough, we've got one of those. I don't think we're going to get any dinosaurs managing teams at the top half of the table, top end of the table. I just don't see it. I think football's moved on from that, and even the Championship has moved on. I think
summer tournaments so often have these plot points which moves football on, and we're back to a Spanish plot point, whereas previously did with the stars they had of Iniesta and Xavi and all that lot, Torres, all that. They dictated the way football went for 10 years, 15 years maybe. Then they dropped off, and it was that Klopp style football. Pep's obviously come back in and reintroduced that style of passing possession football, and then this summer Spain have come in and done that, but added dynamism in wide positions, and but still playing with Morata's quite good, but I've never viewed him as world class. But they romped that competition, and rightly so. They were fantastic. So disappointing for us, but they were rightly the best team. They battered everyone off the park and didn't have to go through any extra time and penalty situation. I just wonder whether that will have impact, little ripples across the footballing world where you can play like that. You can even go back further into the midst of time and go like the good Italian teams. Suddenly it was all about defending and just like winning 1-0 and defending resolutely, and then that kind of was a style for a while. And I think now you might see that attacking football is king again. Yeah, agree. Not just Spain. Argentina won the Copa America with their under-21 coach as their and you look at the Olympics, Thierry Henry's coaching the French side that's in the final, and who are they up against? Oh yeah, it'll be that lot from Spain who seem to be in every single final, and they're all playing attacking football. There's no defensiveness. I mean,
they're good defensively because the opposition don't get the ball to hurt them defensively, rather than, Christ, they've got 4 really good defenders. You know, you look at those Spanish defenders.
Well, Cucurella is a case in point. Everybody was
Don't
criticised.
slag him off. He'll be on his Instagram.
I'm not slagging you off, Cucurella. I'm just saying that everybody was slagging you off, and then you come into a team and a unit that works so well, and he was a world beater, one of the best players in the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe that's why we shouldn't be so concerned about our backline.
Well, yeah, now we're talking it through. I'm sort of getting a bit more optimistic about it.
Absolutely. Listen, Rob has come out and he's openly said, he's told the whole world this. You know, this is no secret. Luton Town are going to attack the championship. We're not parking buses. We're not playing negative old school football. We're here to entertain, and we're going to go and score goals, and we're going to win these games. And we're not talking Kevin Keegan style, no, but we are talking those kind of scorelines, I think.
But if that happens, everybody's going to be happy with that. But, you know, providing you get the wins,
more wins than losses,
you want. But, you know, to play that sort of thrilling style would be incredible.
And I think that's the way football is. I just don't see non-progressive managers having clubs at the top end of this league unless they spend a fortune. That's the only way around it. So you're looking in this league kind of, I mean, look, Hull even got rid of Leon Rosenia for finishing 7th. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about in this league. But you're looking at Michael Carrick at Middlesbrough. You're looking at sort of Liam Manning at Bristol City, and, you know, 1 or 2 others. I mean, there's too many to sort of go through, but you're not looking at the Chris Wilders and the sort of, I mean, he's not in football anymore, but the sort of Sam Allardyces and David Moyes of this world. You're looking at the future coaches, the Kieran McKennas, the Rob Edwards, the Vincent Kompany's when he was last in this. I think that's the kind of division that we're looking at. Is there anyone else that you look at and you think they might be sort of title or promotion contenders?
Well, it remains to be seen how they can adapt, because they've been out of it for so long. But Portsmouth are a massive club, and if they can get their recruitment right, then maybe they can make a good fist. I'm not saying they're going to be in the promotion shake-up or whatever, but they're going to be the second club that we come up against. So I think it's relevant to speak about them. That I think the potential is there, isn't it? Because they're a huge club, and they won't be shy in reminding you about how big they are. But it could be one of those situations of a season where they have to get up and consolidate, or it could be that they do Ipswich, maybe not to the extent Ipswich did, but who knows? Maybe.
Someone said, I can't remember where I saw it, but someone said the last 32 teams to get promoted out of League 2 into League 1, only 1 have gone up again the following season, and it's even less than that. Or it was even less than that prior to Ipswich last season. So it kind of shows how the comparison was what Wrexham could do this season, and people were using it as a negative against them. But it's exactly the same here. It shows how good Ipswich were. Yes, they put a load of money into it, as they're doing in the Premier League, but it also shows how hard it is to go from League 1 to the top end of the Championship, as we saw. Our first season in the Championship was a right ball ache. It was as hard as anything prior to the pandemic, let alone with that coming in. So yeah, if any of Portsmouth, Derby, and I can't even remember who won the playoff final in the end, Oxford, if any of them are right up there, then good luck to them. But can't see it myself. I would expect all 3 of them to be in the bottom half of the league, albeit I hope Derby go okay, because they've got so many ex-Luton players that it'd be nice to see them hang around the Championship for a while. A couple of other clubs that I think will be in and around it. Coventry, they were a stupid VAR decision away from playing in the FA Cup final last season, and obviously
scandalous decision.
Season before that took us all the way in the playoff final. Could easily have been them playing in the Premier League last season rather than us. They're a good side. Mark Robbins is a great manager. They've signed, I can never remember his name, Thomas Asante, I think it is, from West Brom, which kind of, if you're signing West Brom's best player, I know West Brom have got all sorts of financial problems, but if you're signing their best player as a promotion rival, you must fancy your chances. So you got to say Coventry will be there or thereabouts. And that Middlesbrough side that fell apart at our place and then completely blew up the playoffs 2 seasons ago, I can't believe that they're not going to have come good in the 12 months since then, because Michael Carrick is a very, very good coach. There was all sorts of talk pretty much throughout the whole of the first half of last season that he was going to replace David Moyes at West Ham. I would expect them to be in the mix as well. I know that 2 seasons ago they had Chuba Akpom, but they've had enough time without him now to come up with a game plan that gets it working. I was very surprised they didn't make the top 6 last season off of the back of the season before.
Well, they had Archer as well, though, in that
They did.
season, and he wasn't there.
I would be surprised if Carrick doesn't get them in a weak championship in the top 6 at the very least.
Yeah, I think that's a probably good shout, actually. I think it will be all those teams you mentioned, that they would be disappointed if they weren't in the mix, and I think I'd be surprised if they weren't too. They're big clubs as well. Middlesbrough, a big club, so they've got an expectation on them as well. They had an expectation on the season that Luton went up to the Premier League. It's just that they absolutely fell to bits, most notably at Kenilworth Road and then afterwards. So, but that won't stop the expectation from Middlesbrough. So, yeah, I suppose it depends on what recruitment they do, because we've not been in that division with them for a year, whereas previously they had very, very useful footballers in that squad. So. Yeah.
Well, the other thing with the progressive manager is a club in the Premier League's much more likely to give them their starlets, aren't they? We found it out with Dramé, and Kabore last season. Carrick's going to get them as well.
Dramé going to Hull was a strange one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is a strange one. By all accounts, we weren't in for him either. So
no.
There must be something in that. But
they got Walters.
Yeah, and obviously they had Hashi. Prior to his injury, which we hope he recovers from much speedier than the prognosis appears to be, which isn't great. Just a couple of things to finish off on before we close out this season preview podcast. Luton have changed the game again, haven't they? They're not changing their home kit this season. Fans are only going to have to fork out for a home kit once every 2 seasons from now on. That's a stipulation that's in place. It was done with discussions with trust board members. We was asked for our opinion. The club came to us about it. They said, "What do you think about it?" We were right behind it as soon as the discussion was taking place. It's the right thing to do at any stage because the costs of these things have gone out of control. But it's very much the right thing to do during a cost of living crisis anyway. And it's just another way that we show ourselves to be the great family club that we are.
I think it's a magnificent decision. I put it on Twitter at the time. I just thought it's right up there, in kit-based decisions of not having a betting sponsor on the front of your shirt. It just says to your fan base that we understand that, there's difficult times. We understand that even without a cost of living crisis, pumping 60, 70, 80 pounds on a shirt, a new one every season is just a bit much for somebody. And if you've got a whole family that support the club, then even more so. It's just a sensible running and understanding of people, working class people. It's so important, and I credit them so much. And I also said, it shows my age as well, but back when I was a kid and buying football shirts, you at least got 2 seasons out of them before they changed them, and then suddenly it became, capitalism took over, and it became every season that kits got changed. And so I was, very happy with that. Also, that there was slight rumours, wasn't there, maybe a year ago, that it might be a change of kit maker, and I heard the word Kappa and went, that's not going to benefit a lot of lads wearing those, me included as well. But they're fairly skin tight, those Kappa.
I think I'll have been sticking to the 2 seasons ago ones.
Yeah. So it's good to still be with Umbro, be with that kit. I do like it. I did see once that Luton have never had a good season in that one stripe thing. So hopefully that changes.
Yeah, I've seen all the kits cursed nonsense on social media and things. Yeah, let's just clear a couple of things up. There wasn't going to be a change of kit manufacturer. It was always Umbro, and this has not happened because there was supply faults last season. This was genuinely long before any sort of supplies or anything else was done. The rumblings of this was in the works, and obviously once we gave approval to it, the club then have to go through their contractual things to make sure that it's possible and things like that, hence why it was only announced on the eve of that pre-season friendly and not right back when the decision was made, they do have to check out with sponsors first and foremost, because you can't keep the same kit if you have different sponsors and things like that. So brilliant decision from the club. Just on kits, the away kit was released today, identical to the home kit except the orange is blue. Looks nice though. We've seen it up in person. Helen, who we've had on the podcast, was involved in the design of it. It looks absolutely fantastic. I'm sure that one will be very, very popular. I've seen the third kit. I'm sworn to secrecy on the third kit, but believe me, when that comes out, that will also be very, very popular as well, particularly with the retro feel to it. But kits are in a good place.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get too uptight about them these days. It's been a long time since I, wore football kits. But I know some people do. I like the new one that came out today, the blue one. I mean, it's the same design with just the colours in a different way, but it does stand out. It does pop quite well. But they said it's the away kit, isn't it? So
that's the away kit, yeah.
So presumably the third is now going to be the white shirt, which is unusual. Won't go down with the white is best crowd, will they? But
I can't confirm colours or anything, I must say. But you're not a million miles from the truth.
So yeah, I just think it's the best decision that could have been made for the pockets of parents. I'm one. Although my kids didn't want a shirt when I offered to buy them both one. strange kids, but there'll be other dads whose sons and daughters definitely want a shirt for birthday or Christmas, and it just becomes a lot of money. So to keep the same one is it's a top move in my books. There's so many good moves that Luton make off the field that has fans in mind. I know, lots of people get sort of irate about little bits and pieces, but we're genuinely, Luton is one of the best run clubs in the country, and we don't say that with rose-tinted spectacles. I think that's objectively true.
Yeah, no, absolutely, it is. Fair play to Gary and the board that came, as I say, that came to us too, because obviously we have to agree the kits because it's part of the image rights that the trust owns. So fair play to them for doing that. Also fair play to them for season ticket prices. They could have hiked them up. They really could. They haven't hiked them up at all for a long time. And they were asked, again, we were asked for what we thought was a sensible price range, and they actually went lower than the price range that we thought was sensible. So again, fair play to them for that. Final thing before we go, Power Court. It's moving, baby. We are up and running. There is things happening down there. If you looked at Power Court last time we played a football match towards the end of May, and you go down and look at Power Court right now, you are seeing two very different sites.
Yeah, it's good to see that stuff happening, and it's probably still won't quell the skepticism of people who don't see things emerging from the ground, but there genuinely is a lot of stuff that needs to be done to that ground. It wasn't a toxic wasteland for 20 odd years for
that
nothing.
Power station that you've now seen moved. If you follow that site directly, you'll have seen that the power station has moved or is in the process of finishing its movement. No football ground could go on there until that got moved. So now that that's moved, or very close to being fully moved, systems are starting to lock into place, and away we go.
Yeah, and if you want a good look at it, you can as well. Some good people go and take videos of it every now and again that will show you it. But if you're ever in town, you could just need to go to the top of the Arndale car park, or whatever it's called now, the mall, the point, whatever. What's the point? It's the Arndale, baby. Go up there and you'll be able to see what's happening. It's it's. But we've always been positive about it. We always knew it was going to happen. I understand when people don't see huge amounts of activity that they might worry about it, considering the decades and decades of trying to move away from a stadium and not happening. It's just sort of human nature, I guess. But I've always been positive about the project, and I'm still very much looking forward to seeing the new details of it. But I'm led to believe that it's got the stuff in it I want.
Yeah, absolutely. It has. So movement in that. And actually, with regards to Power Court, handy that Luton voted the same MPs in as previously, because they're both right behind the project.
Yeah, and not only the project as well. Rachel Hopkins, whose ward this is in, she is right behind football governance changes as well. So hopefully that's going to see some movement as well now that, since we last recorded a podcast, we've got a new government, and one that has put in the King's Speech, didn't they? So it's on the radar. It's going to happen, and I think it needs to happen. We've spoken at length about it before, but that's all good news for football fans that have had the shitty end of a stick for quite a long time.
Yep, sure, we'll touch on that a little more as the season goes on, particularly in the international breaks when we're trying to fill some time. But we are back for our 8th season of this podcast. If you've put up with us for the first 7, well, first of all, get yourself one of them Olympic medal things that they've been giving out over the last fortnight. But you'll know exactly what to expect over the course of the next 9 months or so. So many people have got in touch with me over the course of the summer. I've not had answers to all of your questions, but we have now finalised what we are doing. We will be back with a podcast to preview and review every single championship game. Can't commit to every single cup game yet, purely because the cup schedule is like an absolute basket case. And with this Sky TV deal putting championship games here, there and everywhere, there might be 1 or 2 cup games that we can't get around to previewing in full or reviewing in full, depending on when they fall in within the league games. But we will do all 46 league games. We'll try and bring you some more on the spot reaction straight after games. Jimbo's dumped the bobbers, or been dumped from the bobbers. He's back in his regular
in the main
horn
stand, baby.
in the main stand, so it makes it much easier for me to get over to him, and we'll do some instant reactions and things along the course of the season. Much more of that, particularly with some of these kickoff times that keep on getting moved, which is going to delay getting podcasts out to you and things like that. So we'll do a lot more of that over the course of the season. As I say, the studio will be kitted out a little bit more as we go along as well. So we're not the finished article with regards to that yet. We did both have holidays and summers and everything else, so it's kind of caught us up a little bit by surprise. But we also want your input over the course of this season. So what we would like to know from you guys, really, first of all, let us know any guests that you want us to have on. It's going to be much easier to get guests on the podcast this season because there's no Premier League contractual stuff that we have to come through, and they've not got Premier League media to do every single week either. So we'll be able to.
That was a killer last season.
Absolutely. So we'll be able to get some more guests on for you this season. So if there's anyone that you have in mind, give us a shout. Let us know on the YouTube comments or wherever it is that you get this podcast, and we'll do our best to get people on. Let us know what would be an acceptable season for you for Luton. Where do you think we'll finish? Where are you happy with us finishing? Who do you think are the runners and riders in the Championship? Have we underrated Sheffield United? Have we overrated Leeds? Tell us and give us your opinion. You don't have to be a Luton fan. If you're a fan of any other team in the Championship, we'd love to hear how you think your team will go, because we will be previewing every game between now and the end of the season, and it will help us enormously if we know what we're talking about for once.
I always know what I'm talking about.
So that's it for this season preview episode of the podcast. It is a longer episode than usual. Of course, there's so much to talk about. We've talked about the whole summer and the season ahead. They won't always be this long, but if you have made it right through to the end, we thank you very much for doing so. And as I say, I would love to hear your comments and your feedback as always. If throughout the course of this season you like the podcast, if you can subscribe, give us some ratings, particularly on YouTube. We're very, very keen to keep our numbers up from last season. That would be fantastic. And of course, the more followers and everything that we have via the socials, the bigger and better we can make this podcast for you guys throughout the course of the season. Thank you very much to the Barber Club and Lower Level in Luton for staging our new studio. We really appreciate the support from you guys. Much appreciated. Thanks as always to Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for our intro as ever, and to Ed Smith Creative for all the designs that you will see on our set once we've got it all up and running and everything. We appreciate Ed as always, as ever. Until next time, from James and myself, come on you Hatters.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got these massive souls. We're Luton people.